Guys, welcome to another video. I just finished recording my weaning experience, I guess. It was like my breastfeeding journey / weaning experience. And I mentioned in there briefly my NICU experience because I have one of those because Ariana was premature and she stayed in the NICU for almost a month, if not over a month. And so we dealt with a lot. And I have a lot of experience being a NICU mom of a premature baby. So I wanted to share that with you guys. I'm going to roll the intro like I always do. And then I can't wait to meet you guys right back here to jump into my story. So my breastfeeding journey did not start off as I expected. If you're jumping over from my last video, you already know a little bit. But if you are new here and you don't know, my daughter was born at 33 weeks and 6 days, which makes her almost 34 weeks, but still pretty premature. And it presented a lot of struggles and a lot of disappointments originally about the way my breastfeeding relationship started off. I had it in my mind how I wanted it to go. And then I had what actually happened, and they couldn't have been farther apart. I say this because sometimes when people who are professionals in lactation are giving insight and advice about what you should really do during that to, help breastfeeding and things like that, they can sometimes not really have a full understanding of what it's really like to go through that. And you may, be looking for support because you too delivered early or have a NICU baby or both and are looking to see what the experiences were of others. We're going to start after the birth because this is like NICU experience. But my NICU breastfeeding journey started right after I pushed her out. She came out of my vagina, bloop, and they were like,
"Oh, she's so gorgeous," and then we gotta take her away.
Is how it felt. I was able to see her for like 0.2 seconds, and they whisked her away, and it was not until I want to say close to 6 hours before I got to see her again. It was 4 hours because it was 6 a.m. It was in 6 hours. So it was like 4 whole hours before I could see her. I did manage to pump during that time period one time before I saw her, which was later than I wanted to start anything, but I managed to get it in. They take us to the NICU at the hospital that I delivered, and the doctor there tells me that
Ariana is so cute, but she looks like there's something wrong with her.
And he proceeded to point out all of the things that looked wrong with her. Her face was too wrinkly, her feet were pointed in, her ears, her nose, her eyes, everything just, apparently my kid looked like an ogre to this NICU doctor. So they were like,
"We're really concerned, so I'm going to call a geneticist down in San Antonio, and we're going to let you know what we think."
So then I go back, and my mom's there with me, but I'm calling my dad and everything like that, trying to keep my husband up to date because he's deployed. He got deployed in July. I delivered in August, so it wasn't even barely a month and a half, if not a month yet. He'd just gotten there. I come back after pumping again, like I pump, and I come back. And they're like,
"Well, so we don't think she has the thing I originally told you. We think she might have this condition that's even worse, and that can affect her heart and her lungs, and she's having a hard time breathing, so we want to send you to the Children's Hospital down in Austin just to make sure they can run all the tests and check her out."
They life flighted her to Austin, and I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to get my prescriptions, trying to get discharged. They wanted me to take this shaken baby class that they just would not let me leave. And I was like, fine, I'll take it later. And they're like, promise? Yes. I never. But they really wanted me to take it. And so finally, after fighting this whole time, I get out, I go home, I pack a bag. I'm not sure exactly how long I'm going to stay there. So I literally just packed whatever I could. And me and my mom drove the hour and a half down to Austin. I'd just been stitched up not even 13 hours before this. Like, I'm telling you, it was a mad dash to get down to that other hospital. So we get there and she's hooked up to the CPAP machine. I meet with the people who life flighted her. I meet the team and everything like that. And I get settled in and I spend the rest of the evening pumping and staring at my little baby in the NICU. It was me and my mom. It's kind of vague. Like, I don't remember exactly everything over there. I just remember trying to coordinate with my husband, trying to make sure I'm pumping. The pump that I had at the NICU in the hospital I delivered, and the pump that I had at the hospital that I was at for the rest of my NICU stay were different. So it was a Medela and then a Mita. So I had to get new parts and get acclimated with both of those pumps, and they work completely differently. If you're curious, they feel differently, they work differently. It's just a different. Because I was new to actually pumping versus helping people, and I'm tired and discombobulated, there's a point in time when I couldn't get the pump to work because I forgot to put the valve on. And so I'm sitting here like, why is this not suctioning? And I'm like crying because I can't get it to work, and I have to call the lactation consultant in, and there's like a whole check of all of the different parts, and she's like, oh, here. And then you put them on and everything works. What I remember about the first couple days is just trying to get situated. My husband was able to come back, and I think prior to coming back, Ariana and I were already able to start doing kangaroo care. So like I was had her skin to skin. She had her little CPAP machine on, and she was just so tiny. But we weren't like directly nursing or anything like that. I finally was able to put her on the breast. I want to say we attempted like day 4, was it? I can't remember. My days are all mixed up in place. Either way, we finally were able to give her some breast milk. It was all express. There was no direct breastfeeding. And she ends up, I want to say on day 3 or day 4, she still hasn't had a bowel movement. She's peeing fine. I have a history of Hirschsprung's disease, and I knew that it was a possibility for her to have Hirschsprung's disease as well. I had been telling all the doctors to be on alert for it, but because she was preemie, nobody was concerned. Premature babies tend to go stool later. And so they were like, it's fine. Well, anyways, lo and behold, she starts throwing up bile. She does have Hirschsprung's. Finally, we get to go at the breast. I have a video of her nursing for the first time. It's so cute. She's not doing anything. It's such a, like, at the time, I'm like, look how great she's nursing. But this girl's not swallowing. She's barely doing anything. But it was a cute moment, and I'm glad that we had that on camera. Like the first time she ever latched on and nursed. It took, I want to say, almost like 4 or 5 days for that experience to happen, if not longer. And so I'm so glad that it was able to happen. The frustrating part, or the part that I think is worth telling this story about, is the relationship I had with the lactation consultant, the relationship I had with the doctors, and the relationship I had with the nurses, okay? Because those are all things that greatly impacted my NICU stay. I had no doubt about the quality of care that she was getting at Dell's Children's Hospital. We knew that she was being sent to the best children's hospital in the area, and the doctors definitely had proven that they were more than capable of meeting her needs and taking care of her. When we got there, the previous NICU doctor, like I mentioned, thought that she had some health issues. They said no. They ran all tests. She came back fine. They said she just looks like a preemie. Like, yeah, she looks weird, but she's a preemie, and that's what babies look like when they're new and early. I was really reassured by that. The frustrating part that I had, and the issue that I had with the staff in this capacity, was that there seems to be not an understanding of like normal physiological breastfeeding behavior. They have their standards of the amount of milk volume that they want the babies to drink. And if they're not drinking it by bottle and they're not drinking it by breast, then they'll NG tube you. And for a while, they were putting it through her NG tube. And so she had no control over what she was getting, whether she was showing hunger cues or not. There was a point in time where I had a feeling that she was being overfed, because she was spitting up quite a bit. There was times where she would only be comfortable unless she was staying on her stomach. She would spit up, and she was pooping out of her butt. Now, Hirschsprung's, by nature of the disease, usually means that no bowel movements can, like no poop can go. But they were feeding her so much that she was pooping out of her butt regularly. And by this time I had known, like I had gotten familiar with her, and I knew that they probably were overfeeding her. And I felt like a solution to that problem was to get her to the breast as much as possible. That way, nobody could tell me how much she was drinking. Nobody was monitoring like the amount specifically. And as long as she was having the appropriate amount of wet and dirty diapers, then it would be fine. That process took a little bit longer because the NICU lactation consultant, bless her heart, was more on the side of, well, let's just make sure that we're pumping. We know how much she's getting. Pump, pump, pump. Oh, by the way, you slept for 8 hours. You need to be pumping around the clock. And I don't care that you're tired. She was never rude. I don't want to make it seem like she was rude. And that's not the thing. It was just, she just didn't understand, I guess is the best explanation I got. She didn't understand what it's like to be going through that and to be stressing about your supply, but also be stressing about sleep and your baby. And there was times where I chose to sleep instead of pump. And I wouldn't like go all night. I would pump and then go to sleep, and then I would just be skipping the one pump session. But she made me feel like I was not doing the right thing. And I get it, because on paper that is not the right thing. But there's a level of like mental and rejuvenation that I needed to get at this point. And by this time I had been pumping for like 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And I guess it was just stressful. And so I finally got to the point where I felt comfortable skipping a pump and sleeping. And I felt like she was not sympathetic to my experience, I guess. In addition to that, I felt like she should have been my advocate for promoting breastfeeding so that the doctors can feel comfortable having already transitioned to the breast. And I did not get that from her. In fact, if it was up to the lactation consultant, the IBCLC at the hospital where I was at, we would still be pumping even after discharge with no direct breastfeeding, but twice a day. And I was very adamant. I was very frustrated. I made sure everybody knew that I was frustrated, because like there was no reason why we couldn't attempt. We know that babies, with even as long as they can manage the suck, swallow, breathe process, they can breastfeed. Whether they breastfeed effectively is different, but they weren't even really letting her develop the chance to get good at it. And what better way to practice these skills than in a controlled environment in which we can tube her if we need to, or whatever. I mean, it was just very frustrating. I don't know the best way to explain it. It's just, she didn't understand what I was going through. Therefore, she couldn't advocate for me and breastfeeding to the doctors who looked to her to provide them with that counseling. I remember even the week that we were leaving, they were teaching me how to tube, like to insert an NG tube, because her bottle feeding was still so dysfunctional. She was having difficulty gaining weight to the point that they wanted. Granted, she had a health condition that would have influenced that, but they really just were all over the place with that. At some point in our NICU stay, they asked me to fortify my milk. They wanted to fortify my milk. And I was adamant, absolutely not. If it became a point where she needed to, then that's fine. But these are the things that we were going to try first. And I will give them this. I don't know if it was because of how adamant I was, or how knowledgeable I was, or how willing to work with them I was, but they listened to me. And the solution that we had was I would pump, and I would only feed her through the NG pump, the hind milk. So I wouldn't ever feed her. I would pump for like 5 to 7 minutes with my first letdown. And then whatever I got left over is what would be fed to her. Generally speaking, that's considered the hind milk. It's the more fatty part. I'll have another video if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. They allowed me to do that, and we managed to kind of hobble along. They still weren't satisfied with her weight gain, but they were satisfied enough to at least let me attempt to do a breastfeed trial the day or two before discharge. By this time, the speech language pathologist in occupational therapy had already been working with her to coordinate her suck swallow. We had already known that she still takes small volumes, and that had been somewhat of an issue with the nursing staff. But one day I was talking with the nurses, one of the nurses, I can't remember her name, but I really wish I could remember. There were so many great nurses, but this one specifically, she saw me so upset. She was like, let me talk with the doctor about, breastfeeding. I know how it is. I'm a breastfeeding mom myself. What the lactation consultant told you, I don't exactly know why she's telling you to not put baby on your breast, even in an attempt to just provide that for her. So let me see if I can talk to the doctors or whatever. And so I'm not sure if it was a combination of how well Ari was doing and the conversation that the nurse may have had with the doctors, but they allowed me to do a breastfeeding trial before discharge. They were still teaching me how to do an NG tube, so I still had to know that before discharge, because they really felt like she was going to need it on discharge. but we were allowed to breastfeed on demand and offer top-up bottle if we needed to. And now I'm a really bad, I don't do as I say, not as I do type situation, because I really wasn't providing her any bottle after she was done. I was following her cues, and she was gaining, albeit slowly, but she was gaining. So we managed to spend the whole NICU time without any supplementation, without any fortifiers. Ariana has never had formula in her life, and we managed to make it through. Not everybody can do that, but I pumped around the clock. I did the best I could. I say this, so what's the point about that part? So I'm saying this all too because I didn't have the best start. I didn't have the textbook immediate latching and things like that, but I still managed to breastfeed her for 3 years. And so hopefully that's reassuring to you if you're watching this currently going through the NICU process, that is possible. Being a NICU mom and being a mother of a premature infant presents a lot of challenges and a lot of things. We have to do more to get the same result. We have more challenges. Babies aren't as coordinated. They have more difficulties. They have to figure out, a lot of them don't even have enough surfactant to breathe on their own. That means we have to do more, and it's more on our plate. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I just wanted to provide some reassurance that it can be done, and it's hard, and the staff is probably not going to understand what you're going through. And even the lactation consultant may not know what you're going through unless they themselves have went through it. But going back to our discharge, so we roomed in, everything was going well. We got home and we were supposed to be giving bottles and breastfeeding directly. We were on the nipple shield, and this kind of starts the next video or the first video I just recorded. So if you want to see the rest of my journey, hop off of that. But we pretty much, from the time that we got discharged, went to exclusively breastfeeding directly at the breast. Not everybody's going to have that experience either, but that was our experience. And it made the transition home so much easier. I feel like Ariana thrived being at home, whereas she struggled in the NICU to a certain extent. We bed shared, we baby wore, we continued skin to skin. We did all of those things that we were doing in the NICU. That's another thing. I made sure to hold my baby as much as possible. Ariana was always in my arms, in her dad's arms when he was there, because he had to go back to work. But when he was there, skin to skin on me. I was responsible for all her care. The nurses were a part of her health care, but I changed all the diapers. I did all her irrigations. I did everything. And I did not let the nurses, it wasn't about letting them. I wanted to be that role. And so I was there. So I learned my baby a lot quicker than maybe somebody who may not be able to stay in the NICU. If you can stay in the NICU, NICUs are all set up differently. So I understand that some people have like big bays, other people have individual rooms. We had an individual room. And I think that helped a lot too with regards to the freedom that I had with her. But if you have the ability to stay there, then I would. That was our NICU experience. We spent 32 days in the NICU. She was off the breathing machine pretty early on within the first week. Most of our issues were feeding related. She would pocket milk in her mouth, and she was not coordinated with the suck, swallow, breathe process. Luckily, she wasn't choking or anything, but she just would not swallow. The speech pathologist was like, I've never seen a baby do this before. I got help with the lactation consultant pretty regularly, not because I didn't know, but it was nice to have that support. And I will say that no matter how much breastfeeding knowledge that anybody has, it's different to have support throughout the process. And even though I feel like there were times where she didn't really understand or give me the guidance that I would give somebody if I was helping them in the NICU now, having had the experience, I felt like it was what I needed to get through that experience. It's challenging, but it can be done, and there's hope. Not everybody is going to have the same resources and the same circumstances, and I get that, but I advocated for myself. I got help when I needed it, stood firm that I knew what was best for my kid, and I maintained open communication with my healthcare team. I think that combination of things got me through the NICU experience without really feeling as though it was that bad. It was annoying. I felt jailed. I wanted to go home. It was frustrating and it was a struggle, but we managed to survive it. And overall, it was a pleasant experience. That was my experience. If you have any questions, these kind of like experience sharing stories are really hard to do because you don't know what people want to know. So specifically with this, especially because this is a thing that some people may go through and have specific questions. If you have a question, make sure you leave it down below. I will get it. If you want to email me personally or send me a message personally, please do. I love it. I feel like this may not be the right time, but I'm launching an online consult pretty soon. I mentioned this on this video specifically because NICU parents have a specific set of circumstances that make it really challenging. So if you need extra support and you need consults while you're in the NICU, I do online consults. So if you want that or think you need that or know somebody who might need it, let me know and we can coordinate and work something out. If I think about my experiences, not all the time was the IBCLC there on the floor always available, but two, sometimes it's really good to just have somebody that you know can give you the information in the way that works for you. So that's my little 2 cents. But as always, if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you guys want to see more content from me, smash that subscribe button. And as always, I will see your beautiful faces in the next video. Bye.